This video is going to give you all the information you need going into Game Week 31. So stick with me and I'll take you through it all. Alright, so starting out, we've got the top goalkeepers and defenders for expected points, according to my friends at DraftHound. Top of the list for goalkeepers, we've got Ederson. I think, Leicester at home is considered probably one of the easiest fixtures in the league at the moment. I would almost suggest that Leicester are probably playing the worst of all the teams. So, yeah, Man City heavily backed to keep a clean sheet, which means Ederson is top of the tree for goalkeepers. Top of the list, interestingly, for defenders is Perisic. Now, I don't really think anyone's got room in their team for a one-week punt, or many people actually haven't. But, yeah, interesting to see a player that's so low-owned that will probably play that game, to be honest. Top of the tree for expected points. Vieira, Ramsdale, Pickford, Forster, Pope, Jose Sarr, Martinez, Alisson, Raya and Kepa round out the goalkeepers. Stones, Trippier, Ake, Dalot, Zinchenko, Diaz, Gabriel, Trent, Malacia and White top the list for defenders. I think us people that have potentially held on to Arsenal defenders are hoping for a clean sheet against West Ham. I think it's possible, to be fair. I know Saliba's out, which obviously impacts their defence negatively. And I'm not sold on Man City defenders. I know they've got a good chance for clean sheet, but quite simply, you don't know who's going to play for them. But yeah, you can see the list there for yourself. Okay, on now then to the top of midfielders and forwards. So naturally, these are the top players across the game for expected points. Interestingly, there's Rashford still in here because unfortunately he's not been factored as injured yet. So yeah, we have to see what happens with Rashford. I don't have any news yet. I think he had a scan on Sunday afternoon on the groin injury. I wouldn't expect him to play Game Week 31, I've got to say. But yeah, remains to be seen, I guess, how long he's out for. But I'd probably discount him from being a starting option in your team this week, depending on, obviously, on the news. But given that he limped off without even going back onto the pitch, he reached out basically running off the pitch for a ball, stretched his groin, and then immediately knew he'd done something and walked straight down the tunnel. So yeah, interesting one with Rashford, and we'll see how that one goes. But yeah, top of the tree for midfielders this week is Kevin De Bruyne. He was interested in one of the top players last week as well. Grealish, Mahrez, Son, Martinelli, a player that I'm really considering. Salah, Fernandes, Saka, Odegaard and Kulusevski round out the midfielders. Top of the tree for forwards, like it is pretty much every week, is Erling Haaland. I think, as I said with Ederson, Leicester at home is probably the best fixture you can ask for in the league at the moment. They seem to be, the 20th best team in the league right now. It's unfortunate, but just the way it is, really, because I've got a bit of a soft spot for Leicester. Kane, Isaac, Jesus, Watkins, Tony, Darwin Núñez, Ferguson, Havertz, Weghorst and Bamford round out the top forwards. Now onto the goal scoring and goal involvement odds. No real surprise that these sort of track the ranks of players for their expected points, given that forwards and midfielders score points for goal involvement. Haaland tops the tree for both. 77% chance of being involved in a goal, according to DraftHound. A 71% chance of scoring one. Kane in second place in both rankings. I think Bournemouth at home is a good fixture for Spurs. Alvarez is here in the list as well for City. I think he'll probably get some minutes, given Haaland's likely to play 90 minutes against Bayern Munich. And I think Alvarez will probably get some minutes against Leicester. But is he an option to pick? Not entirely sure. And then De Bruyne, Rashford, we've already discounted him. And you can see the rest of the players on the list there. Now for clean sheet odds, roughly again tracks the expected points for defenders. So first and second are Man City and Tottenham. Man City 55% odds to keep a clean sheet against Leicester. That means, according to DraftHound at least, they're more likely than not to keep a clean sheet. The rest of the teams slightly below 50%, which is obviously slightly less than the clean sheet coin flip, if you like. Arsenal, Man United and Everton all above 40% with their respective fixtures. Newcastle, Wolves, Palace, Liverpool, Southampton and Brentford all above 30%. As usually with these videos, I don't like to suggest teams with anything below 30% clean sheet odds. For me, that's just a bit too low to feel comfortable sort of banking on a clean sheet, really. So yeah, the teams in grey and green are the guys to really aim for this week. Interesting one, really, as to who you start in goal between Kepa and Raya. I think quite a lot of people have that double up, including myself. I think just based on Wolves, they've scored against Chelsea, but it was a wonder goal, to be fair. I think I'll probably be going for Raya and hoping for either a clean sheet or some saves. Yeah, that's the clean sheet odds for the week. Now, the all-important captaincy decision, although for me it's not a tough one, I'm going to be going for Erling Haaland. Leicester at home is a great fixture. and he's top of the tree by over 1 point for expected points. It's very rare that you see a gap that big for expected points, but I think the performance he put in against Southampton has really favoured him in terms of the algorithms that come up with these numbers. Some of you might not have him because your team was not structured in a way to bring him in game week 32. And I was saying on my deadline stream, I don't think it's the end of the world if you don't own Haaland, if you don't have your free hit for 32, simply because you'll be bringing him in only to bench him or transfer him out again. I think, looking at the expected points, I think Kane is a very respectable captain for game week 31. And I wouldn't be too worried if you had to go for him, to be honest, because I would back him to do something against Bournemouth at home. He seems to be able to pull out a goal against pretty much anyone, and given Bournemouth are one of the weakest teams in the league, you'd expect him to maybe be able to pull out more than one goal in that game. Maybe the Man City mids are outstanding captaincy shouts, obviously the likes of Grealish and Mahrez, but just don't know if they're going to play. And Grealish I'm not really interested in him. A lot of people are probably going to talk about him this week as a top transfer in. But given that he played the game at the weekend, he's likely to start against Bayern Munich. Leicester are the weakest team in the league at the moment. I think that strikes to me at least as a game that Pep could potentially rotate him in. So yeah, don't really fancy Grealish or Mahrez simply because you don't know who's going to play for Man City. Looking at Martinelli, I don't think he's a captaincy shout, but you'll hear later on why he's a player I'm thinking about bringing him into my team. Thought this might be useful to share. This is essentially the Draft Town Dream Team, so the best team you can build for expected points for the 100 million budget. It's full of players that are top of the list for expected points. De Gea, Perisic, Trippier, Dalot, De Bruyne, Rashford, Grealish, Son, Martinelli, Haaland and Kane. Yeah, not much more needs to be said about this, but this is the top team, according to Draft Hound, that you can buy for 100 million. Obviously, I think Rashford's going to be changed for someone else. I think you can quite happily just swap him for Saka or Martinelli, given that he's probably going to miss the game week. And just a quick look at the fixtures going forward as well. As usual, I've got my little fixtures graphic with the fixtures remaining on the left. Most teams with 8 fixtures remaining, a select few with 9. Most of them don't blank in 32 or have 2 double game weeks coming up. And then Brighton, top of the tree for remaining fixtures with 10. Got largely 2 more fixtures than most other teams in the league. Really, in terms of transfers in this week, I'm going to be, based on these fixtures, I think we should really be prioritising Arsenal players. I know they've got Man City and Chelsea in 33 and 34, but simply the fact, I still think they could do well in those fixtures. Maybe not win the games or even keep a clean sheet, but going forwards, I can see Arsenal scoring against pretty much anyone. And with West Ham and Southampton in 31 and 32, particularly if you don't have your free hit left for 32, that's a great run of fixtures. And yeah, blanks for Brighton, Chelsea, Man City and Man United. So naturally, if you don't have a free hit in 32, you'd be looking to not bring those players in this week. Rashford, he's one to monitor for me, really. I've not got a particular segment on him as such, but I think with the remaining fixtures he's got, Forest, a blank in 32 and Tottenham. If you're free hitting in 32, like I probably am, I'm thinking about just benching him for 31 in the hopes that he's either fit for 33 or 34 because I'm probably best off using my transfers elsewhere because I've got quite a strong bench at the moment. Now, I imagine you probably do too. But I think that's a rough summary of the fixtures there. And yeah, the grid's there, courtesy of Ben Crellin, for you to have a look at yourself. So then, a couple of players on my chopping block, if you like, at the moment. And I've ordered them in priority, as you can see there. I know Rashford picked up the injury. But if it's only out for a couple of weeks or 3 weeks, as I was saying on the fixtures screen, I think he could just be a player to bench, really. I've got Solly March as my sort of 12th man at the moment. And I'm half tempted to just start Solly March over Rashford and then get rid of Maddison instead. Because I think long term, if Rashford's fit, you're going to want him back in your team straight away. But Maddison, I don't think you want to go anywhere near him at the moment, the way Leicester are playing. I don't think he's been particularly bad. I know he gave away a goal in the game just gone. But going forward, I don't think he's been too bad. I just think the team around him have been absolutely shocking. So yeah, for me, I think I'm going to be prioritising getting rid of Maddison this week over Rashford. And I'll simply place Rashford on the bench until we know a bit more about his injury. And if it's like out for the rest of the season, then obviously he's a sell. But if he's out for a couple of weeks, maybe 3 or 4 weeks, which looking at the injury would be my estimate as to how long it could be. I'm not a medical professional, but he was still walking after pulling his groin. I think it's a pulled muscle. He knew what happened straight away and he could still walk on it. So for me, that's probably 3 to 4 weeks out with a bit of treatment along the way. So I think Maddison's the priority transfer out. And then the next screens are the players that I would suggest are the best to bring in for him. Okay, the first player that I'm looking at bringing in for either of those two is Martin Odegaard. Now, in my mind, I like to play FPL relatively safely in terms of players that start, and I think Martin Odegaard ticks that box for Arsenal. I think there's going to be some rotation at some point between Martinelli and Trossard. I don't think you sign a player of Trossard's calibre and then not give him minutes. So for me, and Trossard, he's been playing really well for Arsenal as well. So, there's no reason that he's going to be benched every game. I think for me, with Odegaard just being the club captain and really the only sort of outstanding number 10 in that squad, he's going to start pretty much every game. And when you compare the players in terms of underlying numbers as well, 0.57 expected returns per 90 is pretty much the same as Martinelli and Saka anyway. I know Martinelli is currently the highest scoring the highest scoring midfielder in the game at the moment. Odegaard, he's still a great option with those underlying numbers, so he would probably be my safe pick number 1 replacement for either Maddison or Rashford. Yeah, comes as no surprise that the next player on my list is Martinelli. I don't know about you guys, but back along, I took him out for a -4 for Odegaard, and I'm still waiting for my points from making that transfer, to be honest. I know I mentioned that Trossard is, he's waiting in the wings for a start against Martinelli, basically, and I think Odegaard is more secure. But Arteta seems to favour Martinelli over Odegaard, and it was interesting what happened in the Liverpool game, because Martinelli stayed on the pitch against Liverpool, while Jesus and Odegaard were the ones subbed. I think they brought on Kivior, their Polish defender, and Trossard on for the two of them. And Martinelli played the full 90. Maybe that was just because he was up against Trent, and Arteta saw that he was a real danger in that game and just left him on. Who knows? Who's not in the minds of Arteta or whatever. But yeah, the thought that, he might be a bit of a minute's risk might be put to bed a little bit by the fact he played 90 v Liverpool. I would suggest, even though the underlying numbers are the same, I've just got a feeling that Martinelli's got more sort of explosiveness in him, especially if he's up against a bit of a weaker right back. He can completely ruin their lives like he did with Trent at the weekend. So yeah, he feels a better upside than Odegaard, but obviously he's more risky. He's probably going to play less minutes. And right now, he's the top scoring midfielder in FPL. And you saw there, you remember the expected returns per 90 for Odegaard? I think Martinelli, let's just have a quick comparison a sec. 0.31, 0.26 for Odegaard, 0.31, 0.25 for Martinelli. You can look on FB Ref yourself. There's a link in the description. They literally are that close in terms of expected goals and assists per 90. So, I mean, yeah, pick one and stick with them in my view. I'm probably going to go Martinelli just because I want to increase my rank rather than hold it. So that's going to be, I think, the way I'm going to go. But I'll probably make that decision on deadline day. Okay, the next replacement, certainly if you're swimming in a bit of cash, I think Mo Salah is absolutely a fantastic option. I know Liverpool are not playing particularly well at the moment, but Mo Salah seems to be scoring goals still in pretty much every game I watch him at the moment. I know he's also missed 2 penalties as well, 2 absolutely shocking penalty misses, but I don't foresee him getting taken off penalties for Liverpool. I just think, yeah, he's going to hog them all because that's his nature. He's only 17% owned in the top 10k, so he's a nice differential still. He's the best captaincy option in my opinion in game week 32. Obviously got the double in game week 34 as well, and Leeds away in 31. It's a lovely run of fixtures. Even that Spurs at home game, I think Spurs can give Liverpool trouble, but I mean Liverpool can score goals against anyone, particularly Spurs at the moment at Anfield. So yeah, I mean that's a great little run of fixtures there. And I know, like I was saying, Liverpool in general are having a poor season, and I think that's largely down to their midfield. It's definitely not down to Mo Salah, who I think is performing at the same level he has been in his previous seasons. He's just not had the service, and the team have not been playing as well as they have in the past. So yeah, for me, Mo Salah, like I said, if you're swimming in a bit of cash or have a couple of transfers spare to, switch your team around a little bit, maybe get rid of Kane, although would I get rid of Kane? Probably not. Maybe if you're swimming in a bit of cash, Mo Salah is definitely an option for game week 31. Then finally, if you don't already have him in your team, although Martinelli's just taken the top rank as the top scorer midfielder in FPL, I still think Saka is the best option of that Arsenal team. I think the Liverpool game in particular was one that Martinelli shone in because of the defensive ability of Liverpool's right back. Whereas obviously Robertson is a much stronger defender, so naturally the play went to Martinelli more than it did to Saka. And naturally, Martinelli got more returns in that game than Saka, just I think based on the strength of the defender that they were up against. But for me, I think Saka takes the rank number 1 of all the Arsenal midfielders. Like I said, there's not much to choose between them in terms of expected returns per 90. Saka, I think, just leads the way. I can't remember the ranks exactly. You can look back to see the rest of them, but just the fact that he's on penalties and he's got that right-hand side nailed down, I think he takes rank number 1 for Arsenal midfielders. So he would be my priority over Odegaard or Martinelli if I didn't already have Saka. And yeah, looking at those future fixtures, obviously West Ham, Southampton, 2 great fixtures. Still, Man City, Chelsea, I know they're 2 of the best teams. Well, Chelsea not very good, are they? But Man City, I still feel like Saka could do well against Man City. So yeah, I wouldn't let that game put me off bringing him into my team, and I definitely think he's an option to consider. Alright then, that's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed that and found it useful. I tried to give you all the information I have there early on in the week going into Game Week 31, and I hope you find it useful in either choosing your captains, making your transfers, making a future plan, whatever it is. Let me know in the comments what you're going to do with your team this week and what you thought of the players that I've suggested. And yeah, if you enjoyed the video, please leave me a like rating and subscribe to the Golden Goal channel. I'll be back again sometime this week with another video. Until then. Sounded like an influencer then.